You've started outsourcing your thinking to the loudest voice, even when it defies your own sense of truth. Comfort has replaced clarity. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who mapped the architecture of the unconscious mind. Immediately, there's a quiet unease beneath the comfort. What you borrow from others feels safe at first, but somehow leaves you emptier. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, this thinker draws the line between external noise and inner honesty. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. It's never as easy as turning inward on command. There's a hidden violence in betraying your own experience, like stepping out of your body day after day. Every borrowed opinion feels a little heavier than the last. It's not just insecurity that pulls you outward. It's the hope of belonging. The mind strains for confirmation, for a map that someone else has already drawn. Yet the deeper compromise unfolds quietly. The urge to please eats away at your own edges, and soon you can't see where they even were. In Modern Man in Search of a Soul, he surfaces the agony of fitting into pre-cut molds. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Here's the first real complication. Mimicking what works for another can quietly destroy you. You inherit anxieties, routines, needs that were never yours. One-size-fits-all advice starts to split you into pieces. You become a collage of borrowed routines and stifled instincts. Each time you silence internal resistance, you drift further from the world that was meant for you. This is subtle self-abandonment, made respectable by its popularity. The ache compounds across years, first as confusion, then regret. The real damage isn't just missing out on some misunderstood, authentic self. It's the exhaustion, the foggy fatigue of carrying things that never fit. That hollow disquiet when you realize what you've traded for approval or ease. This isn't just about feeling lost. It's about forgetting how to start looking. Your own mind, once vivid and wild, now echoes with borrowed slogans that never quite ring true. That's the quiet opening the philosopher exposed, and now the descent truly begins. You try harder, hoping that if you follow every rule, the unease will fade. But the more you contort to match those borrowed contours, the more your inner censor grows sophisticated. It disguises itself as practicality, as maturity, as wisdom. Soon, it's not a voice you challenge, it's the voice you trust most. Desires and instincts become suspicious, unfit for polite company. The mind doesn't just reject wildness, it edits memory, rewriting your own reactions until doubt feels like clarity. There's a vicious stability in this. The world rewards every act of self-editing. Even loved ones nod, "You're so reasonable now." But reasonableness, collected in fragments, inherited from everyone but yourself, curdles into self-mistrust. The rules you keep following stop protecting you and start turning on you. This crowdsourced conscience, once meant to guide, mutates into a relentless critic. Now, it's not only telling you what you can't say, it's puncturing the urge to want anything at all. Then, without warning, the self you tried to preserve by fitting in grows brittle and remote. You start policing your dreams for traces of the unruly, the strange, the embarrassing. Even your private thoughts feel monitored. At the complication's peak, longing for approval flips into hunger for erasure, wishing you could disappear behind flawless camouflage. This is the moment the philosopher locked onto and refused to look away. In Memories, Dreams, Reflections, he names the trap outright. Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism. Shame creeps in, because the hardest habits to break are the ones disguised as virtues. Here's the line that twists the gut. The inner censor isn't just a voice in your head. It's the jailer who hands you the key and tells you not to use it. If you accept its terms completely, you can't even imagine what you've lost. But that surrender isn't the end. There's a cost even deeper, hidden in plain sight that most never spot until it's too late. But something ruptures at the quietest hour. The ache of being handed your own silence gets harder to ignore. There's a night when you wonder who exactly is benefiting from these borrowed rules. Habit starts to feel less like safety and more like self-betrayal. This is the crack in the surface where the turning point forces its way in. In Psychology and Alchemy, he voices the insight that won't evaporate with morning. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That single sentence shreds the lie of helplessness the inner censor whispers. Suddenly, the old story, that you're just following the best advice, being realistic, exposes itself as a mask. It isn't realism if it erases you. If you let that voice run on autopilot, you're not obeying reality, you're stalling out your own becoming. This realization slices through denial. The so-called protector, the censor, was always the main thief, stealing the chance to live out what only you can bring. In rejecting the strange and the unruly parts of yourself, you amputate the very sources of renewal. Here's how it happens. Every time you dismiss a half-formed idea as too weird or bite back a question in the name of fitting in, you reinforce your own shrinking. An inherited conscience can't tell you what's possible for you. It only ever spools out what's safe for the crowd. What you lose is subtle but immense. Creativity decays. Desire contracts to fit the mold. Soon, the idea of wanting more feels hazardous, like it risks everything you've already sacrificed. Inside this cage, fear isn't just of rejection or failure, it's the deeper terror of being visible as you are. That's the hidden bargain. The momentary relief of conformity always trades away a future self you can barely imagine. The philosopher's insight cracks the door. The only way out is to bring the hidden controller into the light. The psychic mechanism is ancient, built for survival, now turned to sabotage. Dismantling it isn't reckless. It's the only act of allegiance to what's alive in you. In Psychology and Alchemy, the philosopher exposes the paradox underlying all this turmoil. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order. There's no safety in perfect camouflage. Real order, the kind that anchors you, grows from what you dare to see and claim and risk inside yourself. The world inside is riotous, not sanitized. But its patterns rise only after you step through the noise and confront the chaos. From here, something silent and indestructible begins to move underneath. Finally, your own voice, uncensored. Conformity steals the future self you're meant to be. Embracing your chaos is the path to true freedom. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and comment below. What part of yourself have you been afraid to show?